and welcome back to another Mapping It Out Wednesdays. So this Wednesday, what I'm really excited about is that we've spent some time talking to some practitioners, amazing practitioners that Akila has actually trained. And I thought it'd be fun if we come back to the motivational master herself, the mentor of all, and really talk about a little bit about what we've learned from those that we've interviewed, and also a little bit more about the clusters. So I thought it'd be fun if we talk a little bit about the relationship clusters. Akila, can you give us a nice overview of what are the relationship clusters? What are the three in there? And what does it all mean?
Thank you. I most certainly will. But before I do that, I want to say welcome back. I've missed that lovely, cheerful face and voice.
Thank you. Yeah, I was sick for a couple of weeks, so thank
I
you.
know. And I'm glad to see you back here. So thank you. Okay. Well, I guess I'd like to start from a bit of a higher point of view. What I say about motivational maps, I call it a gateway into self-awareness. Okay. And when you look at self-awareness, self-awareness consists of two things. It's not just how well you know yourself, but it's also understanding how you might be perceived by others. That does not mean you have to change your behavior. It's simply knowledge. You do with that knowledge as you will, okay?
Hmm.
And when we look at the core of the motivational maps, it is made up of 9 motivational levers, and those are in 3 clusters. And the 3 clusters, as you've mentioned, is relationship is the first one. And then we have what we call the achievement cluster and the growth cluster. And before I get into that, I want to talk a little bit about what those clusters mean.
Hmm.
The achievement cluster is very much past focused. It's the one that is really talking about our cognitive brain. It's about the things that came from your past. It's nature, it's nurture, it's your education, it's your experience. It's every movie you've seen as a child, and every bit of music you hear growing up. They all landed into your subconscious, and that creates or influences what motivates you. Okay. And that's about 30 to 40%. So quite often when you hear about a psychometric that they say, oh, well, we measure motivation too. That's the part they're measuring, because psychometrics are focused on the cognitive part of the brain, the thinking part of the brain. Okay.
Mhm.
The achievement, which is our red cluster, that is about the here and now. And that's the second source of motivation. It's our self-concept, how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about our experience, how we feel about, what we can and cannot do. And that can also be a motivator. And just to go back a second to the part that is past, that is relatively fixed, just like the psychometrics are. But when we are talking about the here and now, the present, your motivations can be influenceable. Take, for instance, you're up for a promotion and you're thinking, man, this job sounds good, but I don't think I really have the experience. And your boss comes along and says, are you applying for that? And you say, I don't think I really have the experience. And she says, what do you mean you don't have the experience? Remember when you did this and this and this? Those were the things that you were working on, the qualifications. You may not have called them that, but you do have the experience. And like a light bulb goes off in your head, and you go, you're right, I do. And then you make the decision to apply for that job. That's the influenceable part. Someone else can't motivate you, but they can influence you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yes.
And then the third part is the future. And because the future hasn't happened as yet, it's totally variable. But when that comes into motivation is that It's your expectations. If you expect that the future is going to hold nothing but wonderful things for you, you are more likely to take risks. You're more likely to approach it with a very positive attitude. And you tend to be more resilient because you believe in this bright future. If you are somebody who thinks that, you know what, I can't see the future. I don't know what's going to be there. So I'm going to be cautious. It influences how you approach the future. And I always used to say, the majority of young people in university aren't there for the love of learning. They're there because they think if they graduate, they're going to make more money, because that's what the studies had said.
Yeah.
And it never ceased to amaze me how many people I know who graduated from university and never used their degree.
Yeah.
Do you know any of them?
Several people
Yes,
that have
I
never
know.
used their degree. A
And
good
that
chunk of
is
them.
another area I would love to work with young people going into university, or have any one of my practitioners do that. Find out what it is that's important to them, what's motivated them. And if you can align your degree with your course, with the course you want to take, man, not only will you be enjoying it, it's not going to be a chore. And when you graduate, you know where you're going.
Mhm.
You've got a path laid out for you.
Mhm. Yeah.
Anyway, going back to your question, that was my long answer.
So yes, so going back, so let's look at the relationship cluster, which is the heart cluster, as you always like to say,
Yes.
which is really about how I feel. Those would be the words that I use in sort of past focus. What are the three that are in that cluster?
Okay. Well, one more thing. When I started to talk about self-awareness,
Mm-hmm.
the clusters is an expression of how other people see you. So that's the second part of the self-awareness.
Yeah.
And it's very complicated. I just mentioned the three different clusters, but not everyone is that way. Because if you have in a relationship, it consists of 3 green motivational levers. But if you happen to have 2 of those and 1 red cluster, you will act totally differently because that red cluster is going to influence your behavior.
Yeah.
And when you take a look at all of those numbers, that's why we can generate more than 1.5 million individual profiles for someone taking them out. So the relationship cluster, as you said, as we've said, it's based in the past. It is the heart cluster. It's all about feeling. And the 3 levers that are there, the first one is called the defender. And the defender's focus is on security, predictability. They don't like surprises. They like to know what's going to happen next. And people who love coming to work, getting to their desk, sit down, and know exactly what they're going to do for the rest of the day, they have a strong defender tendency. And you know what? They are the workers in the world, are the ones who get things done.
Nice.
The second one is called friend, but that's all about relationships. And what they value is connection. They need to be liked, they need to belong, not necessarily be liked. They want to be liked, but they need to belong to a group. They need that sense of belonging wherever they are. They love the socialness of their office or the people that outside their community. You'll find they are joiners in various things. Okay. And then the third one is what we call the star. And these are people who loves recognition. Okay. That's not just loves recognition, depending on how high that need is, it's they need recognition.
Mm-hmm.
So you will find them in music, movies, but all over the place. They're competitive, they like to stand out, and they have great work ethic if that drive is high enough because they want to be one of the best. That's inherent part of their motivation for the star.
Mhm.
Okay. So those are the three motivators in there. And when you look at that, we say it's a relationship cluster. You can see that most people, as far as I know, can't achieve security without other people involved. Yeah. You can't achieve a sense of belonging without other people involved. You can't achieve recognition unless there's other people involved. So it's a people-centric cluster, okay? Because you need to be around other people. And that cluster, it has certain characteristics. This pure cluster has certain characteristics that goes along with it. One, that cluster tends to be risk averse. Okay, depending on how high your actual motivators are, will tell you how risk averse you are in that thing. They are also slower decision makers because they want information before they make a decision. This group thrives on information that are pertinent to them at work, at home, wherever. They need to trust somebody before they will make a decision, the person they're dealing with. If they don't trust you, they will never, if you're a salesperson and they don't trust you, no matter how good you are, they won't deal with you. But for somebody who's been in their lives for a long time, they trust them absolutely because that person has proved themselves. Another thing that that cluster does, it's how they speak. And it's a reflection of what they expect from other people.
Mm-hmm.
If you ask them how their day was, you wouldn't get just a fine, and move along like another cluster would do. but it'll say, oh, I'm good. I slept well last night, or I'm feeling horrible. I didn't sleep last night, and I don't know why I didn't sleep last night because this is bothering me. They will tell you a story around whatever question you ask them.
You'll get all the details.
Yes, that's right. Because they like to receive information, so they naturally give information. Yeah. And that can grate on the nerves of another cluster who theirs is give me the bottom line. But once you start to understand that you two are motivated by two things, you're able to communicate better. Like let's say I am the high level, give me the bottom line person. Then I said, how are you, Marie? How are you today, Marie? And you start talking. I said, I've only got 1 minute, so
Right.
I want to hear about you, but could you make it fast? If you can do that politely in a fun way, that's great. Or you can let them start telling you and you go, what, it sounds like you had an interesting night, but I've got to run. So thank you.
I love that. That's such a great lead into my next question. And I will say to everyone watching, don't worry, we won't leave you hanging. We're going to talk about the other two clusters after we do a series of practitioner interviews. Then we'll jump into the next cluster and then we'll go into the next cluster after that. But we wanted to give you a bit of a teaser to kind of give you some information around each of the clusters so that you get to know motivational maps a little bit more and a little bit deeper. And so I appreciate that information around the cluster. So kind of talking about that, we had a great opportunity to talk to some of the incredible practitioners that you've trained. Robin, who uses conflict resolution, Alphon, who applies it to hiring, Tina, that leverages it for strategy. And what has surprised you the most about how people have used motivational maps in the real world?
Well, you know what? What amazed me about motivational map is that because it is about people, it applies anywhere and everywhere. And that was one of the first things I had to talk to people about, is like motivational maps is industry agnostic. If there's people, it applies. And if whatever you're doing will interact with people, it will apply. Like you've talked about those three. We have a practitioner who is a couples counselor, relationship counselor. She
Mhm.
uses it. We have people who are energy healers that use it. There's a young man we're hoping to get on here. He has a he has a different way of helping people to understand each other. And he uses it as a way to give people that very first, who are you? What's motivating you? What is it your needs are? And because when they know their own needs, they can communicate better, because that's really important. So there are so many ways. And you want to know another way? It is a fabulous way to use it if you are writing a fiction.
Oh,
Because,
tell me
yes.
more about that.
Well, think about this. You start with a character. By
Mhm.
the end of the book, you don't want your character to be the same. The main character usually goes through an arc
Yeah.
where they start in one way and things happen in the book that changes them and whatnot. Well, if you start by answering a motivational map as the character you envision, okay, and you've got that profile, and then you do one for the character the way you envision them at the end, now you have a path to follow. Nothing, I'm an avid reader, okay? And
Mhm.
nothing annoys me more when in the middle of the book, the character acts out of character.
Right. Oh my gosh. That, yes, I'm with you on that. That, yes. Oh my gosh, yes.
So it is a wonderful tool for that, because the character becomes authentic and you as the author understands what they're feeling and what they're going through and what their issues are as you go through the book. One of the things
Love
I
that.
find interesting, and have you written a nonfiction?
I've written a nonfiction. Yes.
Well, did you notice if you had characters in there that at a certain point the characters take over? Like, I'm writing a story and they have a mind of their own. They stop doing what you want them to do and they start acting as if, or we start writing as if they're real people. And
Yes. Yeah. Especially in fiction. Yeah. When you're
yes,
writing in fiction. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. They do.
And
The
that
characters
is
do take over.
fascinating. But knowing the map or having that map to help you helps you to keep in mind, no, you can't do that. That's out of character, kind of thing.
I love that. That is very, not only is that a very helpful tip, but that's also a very helpful tool when you're writing. I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to actually use that
Yes.
for my next story. I'm going to use that. I love that. Such a good tool. Such a good tip.
And
So, oh, go
one
ahead.
more thing I want to say, there's another one.
Mhm.
Movies. What are actors always saying? What's
Yeah.
my motivation? Well,
Mhm. Yeah.
give them.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, as you were talking about story, I was thinking about scripts and thinking about that's such a great tool for someone to use as they're building their character that they're portraying, or even writing a script for a character. So that's really great. I hadn't thought of motivational maps with being an author or a script writer, which is still being an author. That's a very cool way of using it. Yeah. So
What I was getting at is that motivational map is limited only by your imagination.
yes. So yeah, you've had which is going to be really exciting because we're going to be interviewing many different practitioners. So it's very exciting to see how people are using motivational maps in their work and in their leisure as well. So
Yes.
that's really sort of an exciting thing. Kind of going back to the example you gave when we were talking about the relationship cluster and around conflict. Robin talks about how she uses motivational maps to help de-escalate conflicts by revealing what's truly at stake for the people in the conflict. How can leaders proactively use motivational maps to prevent conflicts from even starting?
Well, when we do a team map,
Mhm.
we usually have a workshop where we explain to the group about each motivators. We talk about the strength of the motivator and what it is that people who have those motivators need. What motivates them, what demotivates them. What are the things that can potentially cause conflict? And then we talk about the conflict themselves. We not necessarily conflict, but tension. That's what I prefer to call it. And then we talk about where these motivations come from and that it's not a choice. In so many offices, you'll hear people say, it's a personality thing. No, it's not. It's a motivational conflict. But once you understand that this is coming from your subconscious, this is not something you are choosing to do. It's something that is an instinctive response. Now, once you know that, and if you don't like the fact that something triggers you, you now have the awareness that you can start working on it. Understand where it came from, why it's there. What do you need to do? How do you need to start thinking differently if that's not the way you want to be? But once people start understanding that they all have these instinctive behaviors and being mad at someone about it, that might be your instinct to be mad, get curious. You know, what is it about this that you need to have to make it workable for you? What is it you need from me so that I need this, this, and this? What do you need from me so that we can come to an agreement on how we're going to do this? And that's what she was getting at, is
I
because now
love
we've
that.
opened up a conversation
Mhm.
and we're taking people where they are and who they are and saying, look, we know this is not your fault or my fault. Let's try to work with it to come up with a solution that is going to work for both of us.
I love that because you're really talking about motivational maps giving people the awareness,
Mm-hmm.
which is the first step. If I'm aware of it, then now I can begin to work on how to enhance it or how to improve it. So I love that. And that sort of leads me into the next point. So Tina, when we interviewed her, she highlighted how she integrates motivational map with strategic planning and approaching goal setting
Mm-hmm.
and team development. Now, how does knowing a team's motivation shift how a leader can approach long-term strategy and goal setting?
Well, the way a team should be formed. Right now, we have a team that normally comes together in an ad hoc way. This is a great person. We want this is a great person. You've got a team, and sometimes you have absolutely great people on that team, but the team is underperforming. What you have to look at is what is this team? What is their mission? And what motivations are required for that to have that mission? And everybody doesn't have to say I have the same motivation. They may share the most important one, but the whole idea is that they start to learn that you have to have a common goal. If you don't have a common motivation, and you don't have working towards a common goal, if your motivation is, let's say, a searcher because you want to make a difference, you're not putting out your best work. Okay. Because what feeds a searcher's motivation, and when I say feed it, it energizes them, is knowing that they are making a difference. Okay. So, first of all, if people were hiring a little bit differently, first they know, okay, here's our goals for this year. What are we going to need to do that? We're going to need this, this, and this. Okay. Now, we need teams to work on this. What does each team have to do? And who are the people that's going to make this happen the best? Yeah. Because if you're building a nuclear plant, searcher would be a good motivator for those people because they want to make a difference, but they have to believe that nuclear plants are healthy and good. But you also want defenders because they are rule makers. They follow exactly the rules. compliance is not going to be an issue, and nobody wants to build a nuclear plant that is not compliant, and people haven't taken care that each step has been happening. You know, so that is, it sort of turns things around. It's top-down hiring, is understanding you're hiring with intention.
Mhm. Yeah, that's interesting that you say that, because we interviewed Alfon, and that's what he talked about. He talked about using motivational maps as part of his hiring strategy,
Mhm.
and really looking at how people are motivated and what they bring to the table in
Mhm.
terms of being part of that team. And so you're really talking about something really interesting, which is changing how we recruit and how we hire.
Mhm.
What would be some of the things that you would implement, that you have implemented, I should say, because you've been in and out of many organizations, when it comes to their hiring practices and those processes?
Well, my dear, you will get a taste of that in my book, which will be coming out in a few months.
Oh,
It's culture of motivation.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then don't give me those answers now, since you've already told me that I'm going to get a taste of that in the book, which I'm really excited about being able to read. And so, kind of going back a little bit, that since you've worked at countless organizations with motivational maps, what's been the most unexpected or maybe even counterintuitive insight that you've gained from these workplaces around motivation?
Well, one of the ones that always surprises me is that when we do an organization,
Mhm.
we know what their top 3 motivations are. Based on those, we can see what the living culture is like.
Mhm.
That's the culture that's being lived. And then we look at their website and you see what they say their culture is all about, or their values, if you want to put it that way. There's our values. So they have a stated values and their living values. And sometimes they're not even close, because it's what they've stated is what sounds good. It's
Mm.
what they want people to think about them. But what's actually happening, people's experience are different. Now, they have a choice to make. They can look at the two and go, you know what? People are happy with that. We've got good people, good customers that we're always getting compliments. Maybe we'll change that. And one example, let's talk about a car repair shop, for example. They may have on their stated values that they are reliable, okay? But they also are innovative, because they will look for new tools and new ways of doing things and bring you the best for your car. Um, and they may also have a value that says, what might that be? Expert,
Mm.
okay? Which is fine. And then we do their maps, or the map for the organization, and we may see Defender is number 1, or number 2. Defender is number 1. Defender is number 1, and Searcher is number 2,
Mm.
and then Builder is number 3. Okay,
Mhm.
so you look at that, and we said reliable was one of their values. Well, that aligns very well with the Defender, because they're reliable. Do you remember what I said the number 2, their value was?
Innovative.
Innovative. Yes. That is not even in their top 3. Okay.
Right. That's
But that's,
creative. Yeah.
yeah, that is just a different practice. But the second one, Searcher,
Mhm.
is saying that we want to make a difference. We are service oriented.
Right.
And that fits better with that shop, service oriented and that. So that's what people are getting, and that's what they're happy about.
Mhm.
And then the third one I said was expert.
Yes.
Okay. And expert is great, but that's not what's valued by the people who are there, the people who make up the culture. What they were saying, it's builder, which is lifestyle. So you have the stated culture, it's got 1 out of 3 correct, and you've got the living culture, and they have to look at that and they've got a decision to make. Okay, we will adjust to the living culture because it's giving us what we want as a company. It's helping us grow, not a problem. Or they could say, oh, no, 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 we want this culture and our stated culture. And you have to retrain people to that. Like, and 9 times out of 10, the employees have never had a say in creating those values.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you can't force people to change who they are. Yeah. The innovation part is, well, what can we do with a car? It comes in, it's broken. We have to find the right part and put it. We can't go put a different part in it. Maybe it'll work, maybe it doesn't, type of thing.
Yeah.
But that's one of the
And
things.
they haven't hired for innovation in
No.
this scenario. Actually, they've been hiring for great customer service, which is what
That's exactly.
they're giving,
Yeah.
but they haven't hired for innovation. So that's a really great example of how looking at the motivators in your hiring system, like really creating a
But
hiring system and a hiring process, which a
and it
lot
has
of companies don't do.
no. You
Uh,
know what? Most companies don't know that this tool exists.
yeah, absolutely. Well, that's why we're here, kind of educating people so that they know about it. Now, you once told me that you surveyed over 300 of the fastest growing companies. And I've been really curious about what was the purpose of this survey and how does that tie into motivational maps?
Well, it was one of those things where you come in with preconceived ideas, right? And what I wanted to do, this was almost equally male and female. And I took them from different groups so I wouldn't have like an echo chamber.
Mm.
So I took a number of them from the 500 fastest growing companies in Canada. I did some of the women in the President's Club in the US. And we have a top 100 club, top 100 women's club in Canada here as well. So I got participants from all of them. And what my focus is I want to see how women and men CEOs were motivated differently. What was different about their motivators? Because you think man and a woman, they're motivated differently. Surprise, surprise, I was shocked to find that there was no difference. And that opened my eyes to a number of things. Because what was the most interesting thing? 99% of them were motivated by spirit. They wanted the freedom to do things their way. They believed in what they were doing, so nobody could sway them from keeping on going. Even when they hit rough patches, they weren't ready to say, ugh, this is not going to work. They just kept at it until they become successful. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The second one is they wanted to make a difference. And they had something that they wanted to do that they thought was going to make a difference. And that is what they were bringing to market. The third one was up for grabs. We had innovators, we had money, we had, any one of the other 7 that was out there. But there was no correlation between men and women as that they were different. And that made me realize something, that this was also a tool for fair hiring. If you did this as a blind tool and you get the results without the person's name on it, you would have no idea if it was a male or female, if it was somebody from another country, if you were blue or red, because people are motivated by what they're motivated by. That's worldwide. And you look at it and you say, is this what we need? And if you want to hire on those, you'd never, ever, ever, ever use one assessment or your assessments to make a hiring decision. It
Mm.
becomes part of the assessment. Like two assessments that I highly recommend and use myself, of course, is the motivation and something called DNA behavior. It is an amazing psychometric. And especially people who are working in an environment, because it describes the environment that would make you the happiest. And once you know that going in, and then you have your motivational part, which is saying, here's what you need,
Mhm.
you can make a better decision about accepting a job because now you have questions to ask rather than getting into a job, getting miserable, leaving, going to a next job. And you can continue that cycle for quite some time. Some people continue it all their lives.
So you're really giving a great example of using this in career coaching to really
Yes.
be able to help someone figure out where they are, if they're career changers or if they're just out of college, as you said. So
Well, there's that.
another
But
great example of being able to use it in career coaching as well as in building a hiring process, where
yes,
it's not the only tool, but it's one of the many tools in a
yes.
hiring process.
And I believe it's important that I work at this from both sides. I
Mhm.
do career coaching just because I want to talk to people and educate them and help them to understand how this impacts them. And then I work with corporations about, the people you have here and how you can make this work. But like right now, I have got, I, I do a group coaching program, and it's for people who are being reskilled. Okay.
Mhm.
And I've got another one starting shortly, and it's for people who would be upskilled. Okay. And I love working with people who've been out of the workforce for whatever reason. It can be motherhood, it can be a long illness, it could be whatever. They want to go back in and they don't know where to start. Maps are incredibly powerful for that. Helps
Yeah, I
them.
love that.
Yeah. So, like I said, as you asked that question, the uses are limitless.
They really are. They truly are. I have one more question before we go into next steps in terms of if someone is really interested in becoming certified or even getting more information about motivational maps. So as someone who I say recently minted as a motivational map practitioner, as a licensed practitioner, one of the use cases that I'm very interested in using motivational maps for is succession planning. I do a
Mm,
lot of work with succession planning in terms of business owners who are maybe partners and they're working to figure out what's the next step as they move on in their businesses that are family owned, but also succession planning within an organization, as we have a lot of baby boomers that are now leaving the workforce, and we have Gen Xers that have moved up into leadership positions, or right now, Gen Xers leaving the workforce because they're also deciding that they want to change. So we have millennials moving up into
mhm.
those positions and Gen Zs moving into the workforce. And so there's a lot of knowledge that we're going to be losing in
Mhm.
the coming years. And so succession planning is also part of how do we do retention of knowledge. So
That's
there's
right.
multiple levels of succession planning.
Yes.
So all that to say is, do you find that motivational maps is a really good tool for succession planning?
Yes, it is. And I had that first realization when I was doing in that same survey, I was doing a debrief for a gentleman, and his name was James Bond. You know?
I'm sorry, what, James Bond?
Yes, James Bond.
Okay, all right, well, there
I
you have
said,
it.
or really said yes. And as I finished his debrief, he said to me, you know what? This would be a marvelous tool for succession planning.
Mhm.
And I said to him, you know what? You're right. And that piqued my interest in that. So I started looking at what and why and how. You
Mhm.
know, again, you start from what is in the job. And then you take a look at the people, the person who's in the job right now. and what it is that they're doing really well and where they are shining. And then you go, okay, that's part of what we want from the next person, like those motivators. They can have all kinds of motivators, but we do want the person who has got great follow through, not just great ideas. We want somebody, or for a CEO, maybe you want somebody who has great ideas. There's a visionary. And then you have other people below them who are more concerned with taking that vision and turn it into something practical so that it could be implemented. So yes, it is absolutely marvelous for succession planning, and not just at the high levels.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So with that, I want to end this with talking a little bit about your certification program. And that program is not just for coaches and consultants, it's also for internal practitioners as well. If you have someone that is inside of an organization and wants to learn more about motivational maps and how to use it. And so when is the next motivational map certification class?
We are starting on the 18th of March.
Okay.
And we're starting on the 18th of March. And if anybody is interested, to give me a call. I will get into it. I don't want to bore you on this right now. And you said something there that I totally agree with, but the way I put it is motivational maps, the training is for anyone who has a mandate in their job to help people achieve their goals.
That's really well put. Yes, that's really well put. And then we're still having the raffle. So we had a winner last week, and we'll have a winner announced to this afternoon for this week. And then for next week, so we'll have the form available in the comments below that you can fill out and you can win. So Akilah, what do they actually win when they win the raffle?
Well, we did say that they would win a 45-minute debrief and a 45-minute follow-up coaching session.
Yeah.
Well, the gentleman I was talking to last week, the debrief went on for an hour and a half. Because there was so much to talk about. And now he's booked his follow-up coaching session for next week. So we'll see how long that goes.
All right. So, well, theoretically, it's for a 45-minute debrief and a 45-minute coaching session.
Yeah.
But as you can tell, Akilah gets really engaged. So you might end up with a really rich session that is beyond that 45 minutes. But it's an incredible value. You'll get a complimentary motivational map assessment, and then you'll get the wonderful debrief from Akilah. And then from that debrief, you will get a little bit later, you will get coaching to help you really use what you've learned with her. And so with that, entering that raffle to get that, you can also enter that raffle to get information about the class or about motivational maps. Or if as you watch this series and you find a practitioner that you're like, I would love to work with, we will connect you to those wonderful practitioners. They all have mastery in different levels, as you can tell from these interviews, of how they use motivational maps. And with that, I want to thank you so much for
just
today.
one thing more.
Sure.
They have different levels of mastery, but the one thing we are is a community. And if they need support, there's myself and the rest of the community they could count on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to thank Akilah for today. This has been so informative, and we've even gone a little bit over time, but we won't tell them. So we will see you next Wednesday with another amazing practitioner that will tell us more about how they use motivational maps in their practice. Have a great rest of the day.